Hello, friends. Welcome to the Big Talk. I am so excited. We have always talked about the power of story on this show and how many times by sharing a story, you could change and potentially save someone's life. What about the storyteller? On this season, we are going to dive deep in how sharing our personal story can change and save our own life. I am so excited to welcome our featured guest today, the incredible Darieth Chisolm. Darieth, are you ready to drop in?
I am ready to drop in. Thank you.
As a multiple-time Emmy Award-winning TV host, former NBC News Anchor, respected business and visibility coach, Darieth Chisolm uses her platform to inspire women to turn their mess into their message by leveraging the art and business of public speaking and storytelling. Darieth directed and produced the harrowing social justice documentary, 50 Shades of Silence, based on her personal story of betrayal and revenge at the hands of a jilted ex-boyfriend. The indie film won multiple awards at film festivals throughout the U.S. Darieth is the author of Hustle, Why Now is the Time to Unleash Your Passions, and is a contributing writer for Inspiring Lives and Women of More magazines. She has toured internationally, speaking on over 500 stages and diverse platforms such as World Women's Summit, the Metro West Conference for Women, and several TEDx stages. Her TED Talk on revenge porn and cyber harassment has been translated into 17 different languages and has been viewed nearly 1.8 million times. Darieth, take a minute to fill us in on anything I might have missed and talk a little about you.
Well, I am a mom of an incredible 24-year-old young man who I love and adore. I have no pets, and I am trying plant-based eating, but every once in a while, bacon sneaks in. So
I've heard that bacon tends to sneak in every once in a while to most people's lives.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so excited to speak with you. I think that being able to share your expertise in terms of storytelling and the art of public speaking and how you approach what I truly believe is an art form is so incredible. I want to start first, however, with your point of view on the power and importance of sharing our story.
And of course, you talk so much about it, and whatever weigh-in I have is, I'm sure, going to echo what you may share consistently with people. But I happen to be a true believer that everything obviously is communicated through story, and it's the way we communicate. It's the way that we connect with others. It's also, in my opinion, the way that we determine how our lives will turn out, right? The stories that we tell ourselves, the internal talk, and then whatever it is that falls out of our mouths. So story is highly important. It is obviously neuro-linguistic programming in many ways, right? The words that come out. But I also believe that when we learn the power of storytelling and learn it in a way that allows us to make a bigger impact in someone's life, change their life, instruct them with certain things, then storytelling is obviously supreme and powerful in so many different ways.
Have you noticed a difference or a shift or a change or an empowerment in your personal life and professional life by choosing to tell your story?
Well, most certainly. The interesting thing, when I began to tell my very personal story and experience with revenge porn, which happens to be a form of cyber harassment or cyberbullying, it was at a time when it was relatively new, right? We know there is a growing epidemic of cyber-related crimes, but revenge porn being something that, first off, with a salacious title in and of itself, can be somewhat misleading. But coming from a person who had a storied public life and celebrity, I desperately did not want to tell that story, right? I was going through a very painful and emotional breakup with someone, and because he decided to take photos and videos of me asleep naked and then put those out onto the internet to try and destroy me, I felt like I had to tell my story. I had to take my power back. especially before it got out. And so it took a lot of courage to do it. But because I chose to do it, I then found so many other women who were sharing their stories with me saying, oh my God, this has happened to me. Or I know someone that this has happened to. And so because I chose to tell my story, I gave other people permission to speak up about it. You know, it launched a social justice project with a website, and I later decided to film a documentary so that I could tell other people's stories. So yeah, my whole personal life shifted, and it really all revolved around this desire to share my story and use my platform and give voice to those that maybe aren't at a place of having the courage just yet to tell their story.
I thank you for sharing your story and giving so many other people permission and opportunity to be able to speak out, to be able to protect themselves. I also think that I'd love for you to dig in a little bit with the power of voice. And right now in the world, how important it is to use your voice and how important it is to understand the responsibility that we have when we do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, now more than ever, the term use your voice is so prevalent given where we are, right? And, you know, we are facing as a nation, as a world, globally, not only the virus of this pandemic, but the virus of racism and the injustices that occur as a result of it. And there have been so many people up until now who may not have felt safe enough to speak out about what they've experienced, or have not felt that using their voice would really matter, right? And so they've remained in silence for various different reasons, and there's no punishment around that other than choosing the time that you want to speak out about it. But it is because we are now having more open dialogues around, you know, especially here in the United States, the issues that have plagued particularly the African-American community and communities of color, that we are finally, you know, having tough conversations, using our voice to stamp out something that has certainly here in the United States been here since 1607. So it's about time, but I think we feel safer now, right? Because it's been talked about in so many different, you know, whether it's at home in safe communities, or even for protesters who are using their voices together. We've never been at a better time, I believe, to speak out, and to speak out with a sense of urgency, but with a sense of calm as well. And I know I know sometimes it doesn't feel like that's the case because this doesn't feel calm, but I think when you really listen to the number of people who have an active voice around this topic, they have some level of calm in their voice, but with a sense of urgency as well.
Will you talk to us a little bit, Darieth, about the technique that you apply, that you work with when it's urgent, paramount, you need to be heard? Talk about how you, as a speaker, use that techniques.
You know, I tell all of my speakers that I work with that in storytelling, if you can do these 4 things, because let me back up a minute. So often people will say, I don't know how to tell a story, or I don't know which story to tell, or does the story that I want to tell really matter? Is it that important? And so these 4 things are the things that I encourage people to really think about when they are looking for a way to tell a story. And that is that the only thing you need to be concerned about, is it real, raw, relatable, and is there some way that you can make it memorable? And so if you can do those 4 things, that is what's important. And we see that now. I mean, to go back to the question about using your voice now and best measures, is that's what's happening, right? You see so many people talking about the realness of the issues that they're facing. We're certainly doing it in a very raw way. We've seen people on social media, you know, speaking out in various different ways, right? And there is the rawness of it, and the relatability is where those of us who say, that's happened to me before, I understand this. because in some ways, so many things that we have to say are relatable, and that's the only thing you ever have to be concerned with. And of course, the way you make it memorable is your style. It's the way that you express yourself. It's whatever elements you bring, your own unique way to magnify, what it is that you have to say. So those four things I think are so important: real, raw, relatable, and making it memorable.
I love that. And I bring up Oprah's spotlight that she recently did, the 2-part spotlight, and on the OWN network. It's on YouTube right now if you want to watch it. And what she did, she was raw, she was real. She made it memorable because she used the language demands. They weren't asks. Here are our demands. And that was so powerful for me as an audience member because I was dialed in. I wanted to hear every single thing I could from all of the speakers, all of her guests, so that I could learn, apply new ways of thinking. And choosing the word demands was so powerful. Talk a little bit about word choices and language.
And I must say, I've not seen that. And thank you for that, because I will go back and refer to it. But your question around using certain words and how they land perhaps with an audience or with someone who's listening. It's interesting that you use the word, that she used the word demand. And for the person who's asking that of someone else, that sounds like, whoa, who are you to demand something from someone, right? But there is like so much power in, if that is exactly what you feel, that this is not a simple ask, I am demanding this. It requires the person who's listening, at least if they agree, to follow suit. There's no room for ambiguity if you're clear about the words that you're using. Yeah. And so just in hearing you say that she said that this is what I'm demanding of you, that word alone evokes a sense of power. And what has to meet it is also power, right? What has to meet it is someone actually who's willing to do whatever it is that she or anyone else is demanding. So I think that's a perfect example of, the use of using words and powerful words to evoke action. I'm always conscious of the fact that in every story, there typically is a call to action, right? Someone's listening to a story, and whether or not the person who's speaking is actually crafted a real call to action, like do this or go there or what have you, there's still something in most people's stories that even if there's not a direct ask, you're hearing it and you're saying to yourself, you're receiving it, and you're probably thinking, I wonder if I would have done X, Y, Z. I wonder how I would have responded, or I get this, or I understand what this person is saying to me because it makes me feel some kind of way, right? And so even in feeling something is the call to action. So if we're clearer about a call to action in our speaking or in what it is that we're saying, we're more likely to get a better response from the person who's listening. So I guess my response to you would be very clear in the word choices that you have, and know that invites the person to take some form of action in response to it.
That's so amazing. You made me think of you taking a stage and choosing specific words so that your audience rises up to meet you, and being that conscious.
Yes. And isn't that what a good public speaker aspires to be, right? Or should be, is that there is not only a great story, but what do I get to feel because of it? What do I get to take away with it? What action am I being led to take because of it? And so when we're choosing words very carefully as part of it, as part of our storytelling, then there's no room for ambiguity, and the person in the audience gets to say, I got it. I understand it. I got it.
Amazing. What is it like to take over 500 stages, Darieth?
Oh, wow. Well, I can't say that I did it all in one whop. It just happened, right? And literally in doing the math, I probably need to update it, because I was on a call with my assistant, and This was not long ago. And she said, well, we probably want to start updating your bio and making some changes, right? When certain things come up. And I said, I'm going to really go back through time and add up all of these stages, because I might have left a few out, particularly in my early years, when I used to anchor the news for the NBC affiliate in Pittsburgh, and would often I was asked to come and MC something or host a particular event. And I'm certain that, it felt like I was always doing something every, week, and we probably didn't include those. So what does it feel like? Humbling. I feel grateful for, in many cases, been invited to speak on various topics. And so that's always wonderful to be able to do that. I feel responsible in some ways, that whatever the message is, that it's there with the goal of imparting, some positive energy in the people that are listening. So yeah, I guess responsible, grateful, and excited, because there's more to come.
So wonderful. I love, for our listeners and our viewers, responsible, grateful, and excited. I inspire and encourage everybody watching and listening to always embody those three traits when you're taking a stage. Speaking is a great privilege, and it is a great responsibility. And anytime you're speaking, whether it's on a Facebook Live, from a big stage, or from across the table from your partner, your words, your intentions, they are powerful. So just a big reminder.
Absolutely, they really are. And, I've not done much study in neuro-linguistic programming. And I mean, I've read the books over the time, but not so much so. But I have been very fascinated with the book Conscious Language. And it really, for the most part, really it is based in neuro-linguistic programming. And so, I've had so many conversations with people around consciously choosing your words and consciously languaging what it is that you're saying, because we are declaring it, right? We are, in fact, putting it out into the universe, and the process is beginning. But the language that even goes on in our head before we mouth something is what's so important. And so it is in the way that we are talking with ourselves and languaging before it comes out of our mouth that is obviously the outcome is our own experiences. So it's so important that we are practicing conscious language.
And you touched on something that I want to highlight, which is the language that goes on in our heads before it comes out of our mouths. As a speaker, if there is a disconnect, the audience can feel that. They won't understand why necessarily, but they won't trust you. Because if you're not believing what you're saying, or your inner voice is not connected to your outer voice, there is a disconnect. Have you ever experienced that?
Oh, yes, I have. And what I have come to know too is, and I probably find this more when I'm journaling and writing, and then deciding on if this is something that I want to share with a particular client or on a Facebook Live, is that if there's a bit of a disconnect there, then it tells me that it's not authentic. There's something that I don't believe that I think I'm getting ready to say. And I've learned to trust that, because it's the way that I believe I can police my thoughts and go deeper and say, is this true? Is this true? And do I really, if I'm feeling this way, why am I feeling this way? And I certainly don't want to project that. So I've learned to trust myself, and I've learned to trust my voice, because I certainly don't want to say something that is out of alignment with what I truly believe. And I think that I know that takes practice, which is why when you ask me the question, have I done it before? Yeah. and in fact, because I'm conscious of it, I try often to be clear in alignment around my thoughts, but it does take work. And for those of us that are doing deeper work, right, and really looking for a way to express ourselves, our most authentic self, you will find those times where you're challenged, and pull yourself out on the carpet and ask why.
So important. I have never thought about it in terms of asking myself, is that true? giving that moment, that beat, because there you might feel something's not in alignment, but asking the question, is this true? No, actually it's not. That's an old habit, right? Or no, yes, it is true. I feel good about sharing this information. I think that's such an easy and powerful check-in.
It certainly is. Yeah. It's asking that question about a lot of things, I think is useful. Is this true? And just sit with it for a while and allow the answers to come up for you. And it changes certainly not only your thinking, but your behavior, and then of course your outcome as a result of it.
Let's shift gears a little bit, Darieth. I watched your TEDx Pittsburgh today, which was extremely powerful. I'd love for you to share with our audience your preparation for taking a TED stage.
Oh, wow. Can I tell you, that was like one of the most challenging speeches I've ever given.
I can imagine, and we're going to put it in the show notes so everybody can go and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it was the preparation. Well, there was a lot of preparation, obviously, around the talk because it included so much personal stuff, and I was attempting to collapse 3 years of my own personal experience around revenge porn and what had happened to me. But then, of course, with TED, this is not so much about you, but about the idea worth sharing. And so it was really trying to pull myself out of it and then really be clear about what I want the audience to know, right? And so that was a bit of a challenge. And then 10 minutes on top of it, like when the time challenge typically is the thing that stumps people, where I was, of course, trying to pull my personal story out and then make the point about how revenge porn turns lives upside down, and what we need to do, globally to protect victims and punish perpetrators. So there were lots of pieces that I had to work through. What I also really enjoyed, of course, was working with the curators, who I thought were very helpful in helping me to stay within the guidelines, which was helpful. And it also came, and I'm sure that many TEDx speakers are dealing with lots of other stuff on top of, doing this. And so for me, I was also filming a documentary. And so I was conscious of the film crew that was there that was shooting this at the same time. I was planning a march and a rally to collect signatures to send to Congress at the same time. So there was a lot of other big life stuff that was going on, as I was also preparing to get on this stage and do my very best and not appear to be a speaker, because that was the other point, is that I didn't want, I know and I can appreciate so many people who really desire to do a TEDx. They're not necessarily speakers, and nor does TED want them to be speakers. So I wanted to step out of the speaker role and just be this woman with this idea worth sharing. And so even that was a bit challenging, but I managed to get through it. So
it was amazing. And I share with our audience that this is one of the best expressions of vulnerability I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of talks. You got up there and you credible, relatable, and vulnerable in the way that did not make us need to take care of you, in that way of just raw, your word, connected vulnerability. It is such a powerful talk. I just think it was, anybody who wants to understand how to be vulnerable on a stage, this is the talk to watch.
Oh, Tricia, that means so much coming from you. Thank you. I know, you obviously work with lots of speakers to prepare them for the TED stage. And so to hear that from you means the world. I appreciate it.
It's all true. Darieth, share with our audience what you think is going to be going down in terms of public speaking stages. What do you imagine that looking like in the next year?
Well, I'd like to think that, it's funny, 2 months ago, in my mind, I thought, oh, by the fall, we'll be able to get back out and get onto stages. And it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. So, I would gather to think that some larger scale events are likely not going to be happening until maybe the summer of 2021, just obviously because of concern for COVID. and safety concerns. But then there's planning, right? So they've got to spend the time to start planning and promoting as well. At the same time, though, I suspect that we're going to be hungry to be with one another. We will be looking for places where we can gather safely because we've been locked in our homes. So my hope is that we'll start to see more events come back on, and sooner rather than later, that people will clamor to come to them so that we are in connection and that we, are finally out of our homes. And because we will be missing it, right? We'll be missing the chance to not only speak and serve in the way that we do as speakers, but to gather with one another, in this sense of separation.
And in the interim, you're someone who's been in front of a camera your entire career. Can you give our audience a few pointers on how to communicate this way until we are on stage for speaking?
Well, and I will say that we have seen so many events that were planned go virtual. And I'm going to suspect that this will be, in years past, many people were holding virtual summits and virtual opportunities for people to come together in workshops and online platforms, but it's so easy to do. In fact, I just recorded I host a show called CBS Eye on Health, where in Pittsburgh. And so I travel back to Pittsburgh and we have doctors and patients come in and we shoot it in a studio. Well, we actually just shot an episode from here, from home, and we had all the doctors in their homes and the patients in their homes. And I thought, well, this is strange because, I've been doing some virtual summits, but to actually shoot television programs, and we've seen, many of the nightly news programs, many of the hosts shooting from home, it's become a thing. So for those people who need to get comfortable in front of the camera, it's something I think we need to be doing as quickly as possible because these virtual events aren't going anywhere. Prepping for being comfortable on camera is no different than prepping for being on stage, except that, you're looking at a tiny little camera versus, a great big one. Being comfortable is certainly very important. Having great light when you can and great audio and a nice backdrop. But I think, we've also come to understand that I don't want to say dumbed down, but we've lessened the need for things to be as polished and professional as back in my days when I was anchoring the news, and you'd walk into a studio and everything. I mean, we had makeup artists and a teleprompter, and there was very little room for error. Now it's okay. We're used to it. We're used to seeing cameras shake and things that aren't, quite as professional as before. And that has leveled the playing field for people who have felt like they aren't professional enough to be on camera. It's okay. Like, get on and people will appreciate it no matter, what's going on. Just don't be afraid to do it.
So true. Don't be afraid to do it because your voice matters. Thank you so much for being a featured guest today on The Big Talk. Where can everybody get in touch with you, Darieth?
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, my website is simple. It's just Darieth.com. Spelling the name sometime might be difficult, so it's just Darieth.com. I'm on all social media at Darieth Chisolm, and I have a YouTube channel at Darieth Chisolm, so I'm around.
And we'll put all of this in the show notes so everybody can get in touch with you and watch your incredible TED Talk. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed The Big Talk. Be sure to subscribe and tune into the next episode. And remember, be your authentic self, speak your truth, and drop in. I hope that you will start sharing your powerful story today, and be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell so that you get access to my newest and latest videos. And I really appreciate that you are here and will always respond to the comments. Big love.